Cuba, it's me. Welcome to episode 229 of The Willu Show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. Now, today, I wanted to do a tribute show. It is a special happy birthday to primetime Marcus Rios. Now, one of the greatest days of my life. I've talked a couple of times about this man on The Willu Show because he is one of the greatest things that ever happened to me in my whole life. Um, when I met him in grade 7, he was Aaron Kern. Now, before this, I went to elementary school. And then in grade 7, I moved to Phoenix Junior High. And a bunch of the elementary schools all went to this junior high. And before that, I always loved wrestling, but there was not anybody really that liked wrestling in my old school. And then we were in this, I think it was no, it was English, because I stole this barbecue poem. And we had heat about that for a couple days. And basically, what happened is somehow I was talking about wrestling, and he overheard me and was blown away. I guess not a lot of people he knew liked wrestling too. And we were like soulmates on that day. We were like, what? And that's all we talked about for hours and hours and hours. And even in this class, somehow this man, I don't know, I'm going to jump around obviously, but it's so funny now that he's a successful car salesman because he could always talk people into things. Even back when he was 13 years old, he was such a salesman. I remember these other kids didn't even like wrestling, and somehow he convinced some of them to be like the $1 Million Man team, and he had like one guy, a couple guys from Quadra were like IRS and the Evil Tatanka and all this stuff, and we would brawl in recess and do this wrestling, and eventually that got shut down, and then we would do it in, I think it was called the mezzanine with Travis Finley tombstone the guy and send him to the hospital, and man. But anyway, so I lived and breathed wrestling, as I still do. Wrestling is life, life is wrestling. And I thought I knew a lot about wrestling. I used to get those old Pro Wrestling Illustrated weekly black and white newsletters from saving up cans and babysitting money. And I would read those. I rented every single tape. But when I met Aaron, man, his fountain of knowledge of wrestling, he would tell me everything, and he knew about other promotions too, and like he had every figure too, like every wrestling figure imaginable to man. So we became very fast friends, perhaps even I would say best friends at this point. And we would go to his house, and it was always just about wrestling. We'd do Royal Rumbles in the little carpet laneway of his mom Barb's house, and we would watch wrestling videos. We would wrestle against each other. We would play wrestling video games. We would watch wrestling, and I didn't get Monday Night Raw, and he did, man. And I remember when Diesel finally won the title from Bob Backlund. Well, not finally, but they showed it. It was at Madison Square Garden, and they showed it on Monday Night Raw. And we were going crazy. Like, I remember we were jumping up and down, yelling and screaming. We were so happy. And so it went from being wrestling fans, and we used to wrestle. I think we broke a couple of his mom's lawn chairs out back behind it was like a duplex that she lived in, but then they moved to Willow Point. And then he would come over to my house, and I had the trampoline, and I had the wrestling dummies, and I had a video camera. And man, things even just stepped it up a notch. But so then let's fast forward to grade 10. We started going to Cary High Secondary School. Aaron moved across town to Willow Point, but he was still allowed to go to our school. He just had to take the bus because that's where all his friends were. But he made a bunch of friends in Willow Point, and they liked doing all sports. They liked wrestling too, and they played basketball, street hockey, and I would go over after school sometimes, and I became friends with all of them too. And then I was Mayhem, he was Havoc. And then he was like, man, we got these other kids here. Let's start a wrestling promotion. And we did. And he did such a, man, he did so much stuff. Like I was saying, he could sell anything on anybody. He got people to come watch. He would get girls. He would recruit people from different high schools to come. Like he would get the high school amateur wrestlers. He would get the karate guys. anybody that we were friends with, he would recruit them, and sometimes they'd come for a bit, and then it wasn't their thing, and then they wouldn't hang around that much, and sometimes they would start doing it regularly, but like, he had everything down. Like, he was a promoter back when he was like 15 years old. He would write out the show names, he would write out the cards, he would write out the storylines, he would write out the the people and their entrance and what was gonna happen in the match. And man, just his intelligence for wrestling back then, like to this day, PWA still uses show names that he came up with back in 1998. So 20 years later, they're still using some of the guys, and props to him. He got me and Eddie Osborne started in wrestling. I always felt like having him in my corner. He was my number one supporter. I always wanted to be a wrestler, but he gave me the confidence, and just he gave me the confidence, and I don't know what the other word I'm looking for is, like maybe the drive, the passion that I didn't know I had, and I wanted to do it to make, well, I wanted to wrestle no matter what, but I honestly always wanted to make him proud. I wanted to go out and become a professional wrestler and be successful enough that I made him proud. Now, I don't know if I ever really fully achieved that, and we drifted apart too, as that's what happens. Back then, I didn't really have access to internet. I didn't have my own phone or anything like that. But every time I'd come back and visit, like he was with a group of guys that hid in my room as a surprise visit when I came back for my first Christmas. And me and Eddie Osborne went back in like 2003 and wrestled in Nanaimo. We wrestled that entire match just to try to get a pops out of Aaron, because we respected him that much. He was like the one that inspired us and made us think that we could be something that we never thought we used to think we could be. And when he actually dabbled in wrestling, man, he was he was a big guy. He could move, he could do, I could hurricane run him, he could take the rolls really good. But man, was this man gold on the microphone. And you can still see it to this day. He does his Ocho at Ford videos, and to this day he's entertaining, he's quick-witted, he's very funny. He was always funny. He was always the class clown. Now, everybody in school thought he was the funniest person in school, but he could cut a promo like no one else, and it was just amazing the things he could do. He just created so many opportunities for us. He convinced us, the CR Campbell River TV, to put us on TV. He convinced Mr. Harley to let us do an exhibition match at the halftime of the Harlem Crowns game. It was like a Harlem Globetrotters knockoff. And he found out about wrestling schools for us. He found, I think he used to live in Port Alberni, but somehow on the internet he found these other wrestlers in Port Alberni who some way know as the Cremator, Cody Washington now, and he had a ring in his backyard. And that was just around the time that I left to go to the wrestling school, and everyone else was there doing it. So when I came back, we got a chance to experience that, and man, like his passion and knowledge of wrestling surpasses anyone I've ever met still to this day. And he's anything he's ever done in wrestling has been gold. It's been money. Scotty Mack probably thinks that's his favorite person in the whole world is primetime Marcus Rios. And even now he does announcing play-by-play for the Shaw TV tapings in Campbell River. But man, it's his birthday, so I'm dedicating this tribute to him as well. A lot of this stuff I've said before on the show, but it deserves its own episode. From the bottom of my heart, man, I want to thank you, because of you, supporting me and pushing me. I got to live my dream, and I'm still living my dream, and I know in the back of my mind and my heart, I know I couldn't have done it without you, and I wouldn't have done it without you. I probably would have just stayed in Campbell River and done nothing and become a logger or something like that, and I would have been miserable, and I would have been this age that we both are now, and I would have been regretting that I never went for it. But you know what, thanks to you I did, and I'm forever grateful, and I just hope you have the best birthday. He's always been a stand-up guy. He's always been great when it comes to wrestling, and he's always been a good family man. And to this day, I think he's living the dream, in my opinion. He's got a great job. He's providing for his kids. He's got a lovely family, and I miss him. And like a couple summers, I went back to Camel River and visit, man, and it was like we hadn't even seen, or like it's like we saw each other the day before. He was the exact same person. It was like nothing had ever changed. And man, it was just great. I wish I could see him every day. I truly miss you, and I truly thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. And I hope you have the best birthday. This has been another episode of The Willow Show. I'm your host, Elian Habanero. I love wrestling. Cuba!